Welcome back to the Oxendine Law Podcast. I'm Jarrod Oxendine, and with my co-host and partner, Christine Palmer. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic, and this comes up a lot. And the question is, what happens when one parent wants to move after the divorce? So let's say they want to relocate in the state or maybe even move outside of the state. Is that allowed? What are the factors that are considered? So whether you're the parent hoping to move with the children or maybe you're the parent fighting to keep them here, we're going to cover everything you need to know about this topic. So first of all, Christine, there's a case really that controls this, and there's law in place that gives the court factors that it needs to consider in determining whether or not to allow the children to go with the parent that's seeking to move or whether or not the court's going to make the children stay here.
That's right. I think it is important for parents to always understand. There's always the question we get is, can she move? Can he move? Yes, he or she can do anything they want and move anywhere they want. The question is, can they take the child or children with them? So I get that question often. Yes, that parent can decide, I need to move back home to Oklahoma where my mom is sick and I need to go take care, whatever. That parent can elect to move 100%. I can never prevent a party from moving. I can't say that's going to be really disruptive to this guy. So no, ma'am, you can't move, right? So can a parent move 100%?
And that's an important point that you made. So before you dive deeper into what the legal requirements are, let's make that clear. Judges cannot dictate where parents have to live.
That's right.
Parents can live wherever they want to live, but the judge has the authority to control where the kids live. And that's where this comes into play.
Yes, because I often get the question, can I stop him or her from moving? Because some parents, if we're just being honest, some parents aren't in a position to be a primary parent. They just don't have a job that allows that. Maybe their job requires travel. Maybe it is odd hours. Maybe they're a firefighter who does a 48-24. Not every parent is capable of having a child full-time alone as a single parent. So sometimes they're like, well, gosh, if he or she moves, I don't know that I can take the kid on full time. So can I stop her from moving? Can I stop him from moving? The answer to that is no. So if that parent is determined to move, that parent gets to move. Now we talk about what's going to happen with the child or children. Are they relocating with the moving parent or are they staying here in Georgia with the remaining parent?
That's right. And so the seminal case, not that you guys are going to look up the case because we're going to tell you what the case says, but it's Bodney versus Bodney, which is Bodne. And that is really the controlling case that sets forth all the factors that the court must analyze in determining whether or not to allow the children to move with the parent that's relocating. And I think that case basically says the court needs to do a balancing test. So there's a big, long list of factors, and the court needs to do a balancing test to see where the court's going to fall. So basically, in a nutshell, here's what you need to know. Number one, to make it in simple, plain language, plain English, you got to have a damn good reason for the move.
You do.
It can't just be because your mom lives in South Carolina and you want to be closer to your parent. It certainly can't be because you want to take the kids away from the other parent.
Sure.
You have to have a good reason for the move. So what are some of the good reasons? Let's say that you've lost your job and you are a high income earner. You're supporting your family. You're the only person supporting your household, and you've lost your job. And you've looked and looked and looked and looked, and you cannot find any job making anywhere close to what you were making. And you've made tons of applications. You've submitted tons of resumes. And after a reasonable amount of time, you don't have any offer. But the one offer that you got was in a different state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for the same amount of money you were making, if not more. And it's a great opportunity for your family that you can't turn down.
Yeah, or even a promotion within your current company. Like in order to move up the ladder, you have to relocate to headquarters in Texas. But maybe that is in the child's best interest. I mean, if you're going to greatly increase your income and that's just a stepping stone to continue to move even higher and even higher, maybe that is in the best interest of the child to be able to relocate with you. But that's a solid reason. Anything related to truly an upgrade or in gainful employment is probably a good reason. That's not a guarantee the child gets to go with you, but that's a solid good reason.
Yeah, that's a good reason. And there's others, but that's kind of a really good example of what a good reason is. So that's one factor the court's going to look at. What is the reason for the move? The court's also going to assess what connections and relationships the child or the children have in their current community. So in other words, do they have friends in the community? How long have they been in their current school system? Are they involved in sports and extracurricular activities? And if so, how long have they been involved in those activities? So in other words, what connections does the child have where the child or the children currently live? And that also extends not just to schools and friends and extracurricular activities, but also family members.
Mm-hmm.
Do the children have aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents that live here. And so the court's going to consider that and also consider where you're moving. That comes into consideration where you're moving to. So let's say there's no family at all in the home state, but there's tons of family members in the state that we're moving to. All the family members there, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, cousins.
On both sides.
That would help. That would help them. Yeah, on both sides.
We do see that often because Georgia is such a hub here, and there are so many businesses headquartered here. It is often that a family has relocated from somewhere sort of less popular or less populated into Atlanta metro area. And so upon a divorce, a lot of people want to go back home. And that is a difference of I'm taking the kid out of Georgia into somewhere else. Sometimes the kids were even born somewhere else. And they've just sort of relocated here for a period of time. So is the move going back somewhere that you've been before, or is it a first time going?
That's an excellent point. And then I would say the other main factor, and there's a whole list of factors in botany, but the other main factor I would say is what is that child's or those children's connection with the other parent?
Mhm.
So in other words, is it a 50-50 custody situation where mom and dad both have half the time?
Right.
Or is it a situation where the parent that's staying in the home state just has every other weekend? Or even better, and I say even better, this supports the person trying to move. What if the other parent never exercises their parenting time? They barely see the child. They're not involved in school events. They're not involved in extracurricular activities. Obviously, if that's your fact pattern, it's more likely the court's going to allow the move.
Right.
But if you've got a super involved parent on the other side and they've got significant parenting time, or they exercise all their parenting time and they're present and they're involved with these children or in that child's life, then that makes it less likely that the court's going to allow the children to move. So it really comes down to a consideration of all those factors, and the court, based on its own objectivity, balancing all those factors to determine what the court thinks is best for the children.
Sure. And we even see the opposite sometimes. Like maybe you're the primary parent, but that other parent is a solid support system. They get at least every other weekend, Thursday to Monday and Thursday overnight. And in the summer, they're 50-50, but that parent needs to relocate for work or for family or for a new spouse, whatever that it may be. So we often get the question, well, can he or she just up and move and leave me and the kid here? Answer's yes. And we can modify the parenting time schedule to make sure that that parent that's moving maintains contact similar to what they already have. But yeah, that a court can't tell the non-custodial parent, sorry, you got to stay here and help out with the kid. The answer to that one is absolutely that parent gets to move.
That's true. And let me help out the parent that's not moving real quick. Don't assume that because you don't have custody and the parent that has custody wants to move, that the move is going to be allowed. You know, the law allows you to file for modification to prevent your children from moving.
Mhm.
And so let's say you get notice, and that's one of the legal requirements here. Anybody that's going to move, even if it's just down the street, okay, certainly out of state, out of county, any move of a primary residence, you have to give 30 days advance notice to the non-moving parent. And that's to allow that other parent to go ahead and file for modification to try and modify custody or visitation, whatever may be appropriate, to keep the children here and not allow those children to go on the move. If you don't file within that 30, before the parent moves, then you're at a disadvantage. You can still file after the fact, but you certainly want to file before they move because it makes it less likely if the court's not going to allow the move. It makes it less likely the court would allow it.
Yeah,
right?
and they can't take the child out of the jurisdiction
Right.
if there's a modification pending. So even if they already have a place secured and they've started their new job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, if you get filed and serviced before that child has left the state, the child cannot leave the state until the court grants permission for that.
That's
So
right.
that's a big safeguard that you have there.
If you're a parent that's exercising your parenting time and you're super involved, you've got a good relationship with your children, and you get notice that the other parent's going to move a significant distance away to where it impacts your ability to go to school events, to go to extracurricular activities, to do homework with your kids, to even see your kids, you can and should file for modification, and the court very well may turn around and give you custody if that other parent insists on moving.
It's possible. And another important point I do want to make is court will heavily consider how long has it been since your last action. If you were only divorced 6 months ago and you suddenly say, oh, by the way, I'm relocating to the West Coast, the court is going to think one of two things happened. You didn't negotiate in good faith and or lied to the court during your divorce, or you've made such a snap decision that you really wholeheartedly believed you were going to remain in Georgia just 4 short months ago. And now you're suddenly up and moving to the other side of the country. So that is something that I think the court is going to weigh is how long has it been? if they're making a change. Now, if it's been 6 years since you got divorced, it's probably not going to come into account. But oftentimes we see people, oh, I'll just get the divorce done and then I'll just give my notice and I'll move. And you might get caught in that.
Well, that's a big no-no, and we've seen people get caught. They're going through the divorce process. They know the entire time
That they're
that they're going to be going out of state. They hide it from everybody.
including
They
the lawyer.
finalize the case, yep, including their lawyer. And then the case gets finalized, and within a few short months, they've provided notice to their ex that they're going to move to a different state.
And I have a job and I have a place. And
I've actually seen the court say, you
You
can
can go.
move, but the kids are going to stay here. And question whether or not they knew the entire time that the divorce was going on that they were going to move and
an
didn't tell
absolute
anybody.
appearance of impropriety that you had to either know or you made such a snap decision you're not making good choices and probably shouldn't be the primary parent, right?
That's right. So you got to be careful about when and how you disclose these things. But look, whether you're the parent that's looking to relocate, whether you're the parent that's fighting to keep your kids here, we'd be happy to help. We can play both sides of that coin. And obviously, there's a lot of strategy that goes into the timing of that and the planning of that and just analyzing. I mean, frankly, to be honest with you, it makes sense if you're the parent thinking about relocating to go ahead and consult with an attorney before you even provide that
Absolutely.
notice to the other party. Because I know I've handled cases where I have a client that comes to me and maybe their reasons to relocate are iffy. So we basically send a letter out to the other side before we even provide any notice or we file any lawsuits saying, hey, my client's considering this for the following reason.
Is there any objection?
Are you okay with it? Here's a modified parenting plan that
Right.
will work for your client. We're going to accommodate your client's parenting time, and we're going to give them more time during the summer or more holidays
We'll
or
give you a
extended
travel
weekends.
deviation on your child
Right.
support.
And we make it, lower your child support, and we make it super sexy.
Yeah.
And now we've turned a case that is chicken shit, right, into chicken soup.
Mm-hmm.
And so it always makes sense to consult with a knowledgeable family law attorney before you make any moves. So certainly in these circumstances, whether you're fighting to keep your kids here, whether you're looking to relocate with your children, give us a call or any other qualified family law attorney, and we'll be happy to help you navigate through that process. If you enjoyed our episode today, keep watching, of course, but also if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you will be notified of all future episodes. Thanks for checking us out today. We look forward to seeing you next time.